I never expected delivery at my front door to become the reason I questioned everything I thought I knew about my marriage. I was 59 years old, and for most of my life, I convinced myself that being responsible was the same thing as being happy. My husband, Daniel, and I had been married for 31 years. We had raised our children, paid the bills, survived difficult years, celebrated birthdays, and built a comfortable life together. From the outside, everything looked perfect. But inside our house, something had changed. Daniel wasn't cruel. He wasn't the kind of husband people would immediately suspect of doing anything wrong. He was simply absent. Even when he was sitting beside me, it sometimes felt as though he were somewhere else. Our conversations had become practical. Did you pay the electricity bill? What time are we leaving tomorrow? Can you pick up groceries? That was our marriage. Efficient, predictable, quiet, and I had stopped expecting anything more. Then one Tuesday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. I opened it and saw a young delivery driver standing there with a large package. Mrs. Harris? Yes. He smiled. I'm Anthony. I have a delivery for you. He couldn't have been more than 23 or 24. I signed for the package, thanked him, and closed the door. That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't, because when I walked away from the door, I realized I was smiling, and that frightened me. Over the next few weeks, Anthony delivered several more packages to my house. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then I began noticing something uncomfortable. I started looking forward to hearing the doorbell. I told myself it was harmless. I was simply lonely. That was all. But loneliness has a strange way of making ordinary things feel important. One rainy afternoon, Anthony arrived carrying a box. He looked exhausted. Long day? I asked. He laughed. You have no idea. I invited him inside for a cup of coffee. He hesitated. I shouldn't. It's only coffee, I said. He finally accepted. We sat opposite ends of the kitchen table and talked for nearly 20 minutes. For the first time in years, someone asked me questions and actually listened to my answers. He wanted to know what I did before retirement, what kind of books I liked, whether I had children, what made me happy. Simple questions, but they felt strangely powerful. When he left, I stood at the window and watched his van disappear. Then I whispered to myself, "What is wrong with you?" I knew the answer. Nothing was wrong with me. I was simply realizing how invisible I had become. And then came the day that changed everything. Daniel had told me he would be working late. I was making dinner when I heard a loud crash outside. I ran toward the window. Anthony's delivery van had stopped near the curb. He was standing beside it, arguing with another driver. A few minutes later, there was another knock at my door. It was Anthony. "I'm sorry," he said. "Do you have a phone charger? Mine died." "Of course." He stepped inside. As I handed him the charger, he looked at me carefully. "Are you okay?" The question caught me off guard. "Why? You look sad." I laughed nervously. "I'm fine." He shook his head. "You're doing that thing adults do." "What thing?" "Say they're fine when they're obviously not." I didn't know what to say. Nobody had spoken to me like that in a very long time. So I told him the truth. "My husband and I don't really talk anymore." Anthony became quiet. "I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe because you needed someone to hear it." Those words stayed with me long after he left. That night, Daniel came home close to midnight. He barely looked at me. "You're still awake?" "Yes." "Everything okay?" I almost laughed. The irony was painful. He had no idea how much I wanted to ask that question differently. I wanted him to notice me, to look at me, to wonder what was happening inside my head. Instead, he kissed my forehead and went upstairs. I remained downstairs alone. And for the first time, I wondered whether my marriage had ended emotionally long before either of us admitted it. The next morning, Anthony returned to deliver another package. Before he left, he said, "I've been thinking about what you told me." My heart started beating faster. "About what?" "Your marriage." I looked away. "You shouldn't worry about it." "I know." He paused. "But you deserve to feel important to someone." That sentence broke something inside me. Not because I was in love with him. I wasn't. At least, that's what I told myself. But I couldn't deny that his attention had awakened something I thought had disappeared forever. And then Daniel made a mistake. A mistake that would change my entire understanding of our marriage. One evening, I was looking for his phone charger in his office. His phone was lying on the desk. A message appeared on the screen. I wasn't trying to read it, but I saw the name, Melissa. Then the message preview appeared. I can't wait until tomorrow. I miss having you to myself. My hands went cold. I stared at those words for several seconds. Then another message appeared. She doesn't suspect anything. That was me. My husband wasn't simply distant. He was cheating. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. 31 years of marriage suddenly felt like a story someone had ripped apart in front of me. I confronted him that night. He denied it. Then he became angry, then defensive, and finally silent. That silence told me everything. Daniel eventually admitted that Melissa had been in his life for almost a year. Almost a year. While I was sitting at home believing our marriage was simply going through a difficult period, he had been living another life. I slept in the guest room that night. I didn't cry. I was too angry. The following morning, I heard the doorbell. Anthony was standing outside. One look at my face, and he knew something was wrong. "Do you want me to leave?" I shook my head. "No." He stepped inside. I told him everything. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said something I will never forget. "Don't let what he did decide what you're worth." I looked at him. "Why do you care so much?" He smiled sadly. "Because I know what it's like to feel like nobody sees you." That was the moment I understood why I had become attached to him. It wasn't simply his age. It wasn't his appearance. It was the way he made me feel visible. But I also knew I was standing on dangerous ground. My husband had betrayed me. That didn't give me permission to betray myself. So I made a decision. I told Daniel that our marriage could not continue as it had. Whether we eventually divorced or somehow rebuilt our relationship, things had to change. For the first time in years, I stopped living according to what everyone else expected from me. And Anthony? He remained part of my life, but I refused to turn my loneliness into another mistake. Months later, I saw him again. He was delivering a package to my neighbor. He smiled when he saw me. "How are you?" I smiled back. "Better." "Really? Really?" He nodded. Then he said, "Good. You deserve that." As he walked away, I realized something. The biggest shock wasn't that a young delivery driver had made me feel something I hadn't felt in years. The biggest shock was realizing how long I had been waiting for someone else to remind me that I mattered. Anthony hadn't saved me. He had simply held up a mirror. And what I saw in that mirror changed everything. I was 59. I wasn't finished. I wasn't invisible. And I wasn't going to spend the rest of my life pretending that an empty marriage was the same thing as a happy one. Sometimes the person who changes your life isn't the person who stays. Sometimes they're simply the person who makes you finally see the truth. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your past and rebuilding your future, tell me honestly, what would you have done in my situation? And if you enjoy emotional, true story style narrations like this, subscribe and stay with me for the next story.